do this thing.
Welcome to Sports, Clicks, and Politics with your hosts, Ben Hussong and me, Shawn Hannon.
Welcome to episode 31 of Sports, Clicks, and Politics. Thank you for joining us another week here in the friendly confines of the studio. Mr. Hussong, thank you for joining us.
Pleasure as always.
So who had a better 2020, Mr. Hussong, the Bills Mafia or the Dog Pound?
It's a really good question. I'm going to say the Bills Mafia.
And other than just being a biased homer, what's the other reason?
Well, because, listen, the Browns broke their playoff drought, which is wonderful. I'm happy for them.
2002, I think, right?
Yeah, 17 years.
Okay.
They got in. Good for them. I think for the Bills, it was not just that they got into the playoffs. They won the AFCs for the first time in 25 years. They swept the division for what that's worth. It was so far above expectations that it's hard to fathom. I think the Browns did what you expected them to do this year. They were going to be on the cusp of the playoffs in one direction or another. I don't think anybody saw the Bills putting up 40 points a game and just running over folks or other teams the last 8 weeks of the season. I don't think anybody saw that coming.
No, but I think we thought the Bills were a legitimate playoff contender.
I thought the Bills were going to be the Browns. I thought they'd be on the cusp. They'd be fighting it out with Miami or some. AFC East is weak this year, so I figured they had a chance. I did not anticipate them turning into the greatest show on turf. Josh Allen apparently learned how to put touch on a ball over the span of a year, jumps to a 70% completion percentage. It's unbelievable.
Mechanics.
And you get to watch the Jets implode. You get to watch the Patriots fall apart. And in the last game of the year, I actually feel for the Dolphins lacking of a football game. But as a Bills fan, you don't know what to make of this, honestly. I've talked to several of my friends about it. The only analogy I can give you is this is like being a battered spouse, okay? Where like I want to believe that my loved one has changed and I really want to believe it's for real this time. But it's not the first time we've gone down this road. Yes, it's a little different this time, but I'm just waiting for me to like make some little mistake and get hit with the overhand right out of nowhere of them just like, I don't even know, like losing in some creative way.
Who's the backup quarterback?
I'm damaged at this point. Matt Barkley is the backup quarterback.
No, we have your answer.
That's funny.
So we had the NFC East that decided itself, waited till week 17 to figure out how to determine a champion. Giants fans not happy.
Listen, I'm happy for Alex Smith. I'm happy for Ron Rivera. I wanted the Giants. Like I've got good family and friends that are Giants fans, so it's another one of those adopted teams that I tend to cheer for, along with the Browns. And I wanted it. I was like, all right, everything lines up. I didn't watch the game because I don't even know why. I didn't have a good reason. I just was like, for some reason I'm not into it. I don't want to watch it, whatever else. And then I jumped on Twitter and I was like, that was a good call. The Eagles just decided to stick a middle finger up right at New York.
Yeah, isn't that part of the unwritten rules? Do they have those in the NFL like they do in baseball? I don't know.
Listen, I don't have any major objection to it, all right? Like, you got to
Yeah, I mean, he is their franchise quarterback. That being said, if you're going to play him, I just play him at all, right?
It was hysterical.
Yeah.
And not only that, like, you want to know what was truly insulting about all of it? It's not like you did it at a predetermined point of like, hey, no matter what's happening, I'm going to put in Studenfeld or whatever this dude's name was at halftime. I just want to see what we got.
Right. Even
if you were being legitimately honest that you really wanted to see what you had behind Jalen Hurts, okay, cool. You waited until like 2 minutes into the fourth or the third quarter, whatever it was.
Right till it mattered.
A 3-point game when you're like on the cusp of winning and you're like, whatever.
Yeah.
In some ways, it was the most fitting way for the NFC East to be decided this year, though. It really was. And I wish the 6-10 Giants had made the playoffs. It's so funny to say it out loud.
Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me?
Little Jim Mora?
Jim Mora. Yeah, bring it back.
Class.
Oh, Jim
Right.
Mora. No, listen, I feel for the Giants, I do, but ultimately, like, how bad do you want me to feel? You win 6-10.
Yeah, right. No, I mean, to say they deserved a playoff spot is not the thing. So, but, we finally have our shakedown. The two teams atop, Packers and Chiefs get their bye. I'm assuming it's an advantage.
Sure.
Then we have basically two triple headers, Saturday and Sunday.
I like this format.
Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, it's kind of like a ramped up version of the Turkey Day slate. So
yeah,
a couple afternoon games and an evening game. The Bills right out of the chute, right? First game,
baby.
And my Steelers are the last game on Sunday.
Yeah, we're gonna bookend this thing.
Yeah.
So outside of your team, what's the game you're most excited about, or you're gonna find the most interesting?
I mean, I like the Bills-Colts game only because I think the Colts have a decent defense and they have a veteran quarterback. They have some players. Like, that game will be interesting to me. I do think the Bills are the better team.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's probably my. I mean, obviously, again, Steelers and Browns is a rivalry even without being a Steelers fan, so that would be interesting.
Yep.
I'm really in the AFC. Like, I don't know, the NFC doesn't do it for me. Who are the Bucs playing again? I forgot.
The Bucs are playing the football team.
I think the football team could beat them. I mean, they're not better, but their defense could make a play or two. Right?
Yes, could. I don't think
they're
they
talented
will,
enough to make a play
but they could. I think ultimately, I follow the old school of, like, look at the quarterback and bet on that. If you do that, it's not 100% accuracy, but you'll be right more than you're wrong. And I think if you're comparing, nothing against Alex Smith, I genuinely couldn't be happier for Alex Smith after almost losing his leg to come back and start in a playoff game. That's amazing. Good for him. Yeah. They should name the Comeback Player of the Year award after Alex Smith moving forward, because this man has no business stepping on a football field at any point.
I feel bad for Ben Roethlisberger.
Why?
Because he would have won it if not for Alex Smith.
Yeah.
He would have won it.
Yeah, tough break for Ben.
He was hurt last year.
I'm aware. And then he decided to look like a homeless person in response.
That's playoff beard.
That was not a playoff beard. That was until I can throw a ball beard, and it was awful. It was a bad call.
Do you have any other I mean, are we just riding the favorites here, do you think? Chiefs, Bills, Saints, Packers?
So I don't think the Rams have the firepower at this point. I think that earlier in the year they looked much stronger than they do now. I don't think the football team can make much noise. A great defense. Best case scenario for them is they upset the Bucs, and then I think they lose in the next round. I don't think they can make a run. Yeah,
I'm guessing the Buccaneers are probably not happy that they're playing the Washington football teams.
I would agree. I would think you'd rather play the Bears. Like, I'd rather play Mitchell Trubisky, if I'm being completely frank. But the Saints draw the Bears. I think we all expect the Saints to win that one. Steelers, Browns, I think Steelers are favored with good reason. I mean, listen, the Browns are not a bad team. They're actually a pretty good football team. I don't think that they are like half the team that the Steelers are, but I think in Heinz Field, in the playoffs, my money's on Ben Roethlisberger over Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, I mean, I lean Steelers, but again, I'm biased. So
of course, listen. This is why I can't tell you objectively that the Bills should beat the Colts, because I know I have no chance of being objective about that. It was funny because after they beat the crap out of the Dolphins, like in an ugly fashion, we were talking and I brought up the idea of, like, look, I think this is the way you'd want to do it. I think you'd rather play the Colts than the Titans, because the Titans, if they had lost, were going to lose the AFC South, and they ended up winning on a last-minute field goal that bounced off the upright. I don't know that for sure, because I do think the other half of this is, all right, you're either going to play the Titans, the Dolphins, or the Colts. One of those three teams was going to be your draw. All right, well, you already beat the Dolphins twice this year, and it's hard to beat any NFL team 3 times. But obviously there's a talent discrepancy there that's pretty great. And the same with the Titans is, I don't know how you stop Derrick Henry. Yeah. At the same time, it's hard to beat a good team twice, and the Bills are a good team. So I didn't really know what to make of it. I'm taking it as I will. I won't count out Phillip Rivers. I won't count out Frank Reich. I think he's a brilliant coach. I think he does a tremendous job. Proving once again that it's usually not the most talented players that make the best coaches. He's just got a gift for this. He knows what he's doing, and that defense is no joke. So it should be a fun game. Yeah, no, like I said, you're probably right. Like, I would rather play if I was the Bills, I'd rather play the Colts than the Titans. Not necessarily because I think Rivers maybe it's slightly ahead of Tannehill, but I don't know. The Titans had such a good run last year that. They're built for the playoffs. Yeah, I'd rather face the Colts and the uncertainty of what the new quarterback with the new team and kind of figure that all out. I guess, but I do think Ravens Titans will be an exciting game to watch. Yeah. Oh no, especially if you like old. They hate each other football. Too. Oh yeah, they do. Yeah, there'll be a fight before the game even starts. I can't wait. And the thing is that it's like, all right, we're going back to the glory days of like run the football, punch somebody in the face, and as you're getting off the pile, stick a cleat in the knee. Like, that's the game you're going to get.
Of the lack of full stadiums is going to impact any of these games. Did you get your Bills tickets, by the way?
No, I didn't.
Did you even try?
No. Listen, I would love to, but that would.
If you guys didn't know, the New York State has allowed the Buffalo Bills to have, I think, 10% capacity or whatever it is, 67-something hundred fans.
6,700 fans.
They're going to be, I'm sure, spaced out exactly 6 feet apart throughout the stadium.
Is our esteemed
COVID
governor attending the game?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
His girlfriend lives in Williamsville. He's going to be
booed.
there. That's the only reason why they're even playing is I'm sure she was like, hey, listen, you're not getting any unless you have a Bills home game. You can come.
You could play with your own nipple ring.
So, yeah.
Anyways.
So yeah, he's going to be there. He's going to think it's like his greatest accomplishment. He's going to add it to the version 2 of his book. So I'm glad they're having fans because I think they should be having fans if fans want to go. I don't know. I'm glad it's a possible opening of the floodgates, if you will, for events and other things to happen here in the state because we've been locked down for so long that I feel like this might be a way to kind of burst it open.
I don't know what it'll take for people to start to realize that these restrictions and rules are arbitrary. I don't know what it's going to take for people to like all of a sudden go, listen, if these politicians, and I'm talking from Andrew Cuomo, Gavin Newsom, Dr. Birx, everybody, if these people really believed that getting together with family or going to a game would actually place their life at risk, there is a 0% chance they would do it. Right. 0. Instead, they keep getting caught breaking these rules. They keep getting caught doing all of this untold stuff. And people keep going along with it for some reason of, look, do you want to know where the number 6 feet came from for social distancing?
Wasn't it like a card game?
No, I would like to know, too, because it's definitely not science.
No, I'm pretty sure it's a card game.
It's amazing.
There was this was like from the 1800s. They studied some card game and figured out that the people who were within 6 feet got the thing, and people outside of 6 feet didn't. I swear to God, it was some.
It's amazing. At least there's some science.
I couldn't even read further, but I did read.
There's a study out of Korea where a guy literally caught COVID when a younger person walked into a restaurant or something with COVID, symptomatic COVID, walked into the restaurant. That dude never got within 25 feet of this other man and had COVID, and the guy was only there for 5 minutes. Like, the idea that staying 6 feet apart is somehow going to stop you from getting COVID is beyond arbitrary. Joe Biden talking about if we just wore masks for 100 days.
Yeah, well, the 6 feet, the 6 feet,
95?
The 6 feet becomes untenable when you have a mask on your face because now you're throwing that aerosol even farther than 6 feet. So it's all just it's
right.
So crazy that
it's the dumbest. Listen. So yes, back to the football. I hope that people start to realize, like, hey, it's the same thing with movie studios in California. Why can movie studios do whatever they want and restaurants can't be open? Is it because that there's really scientific basis for this, or is it because the people behind the movie studios write way bigger checks to the politicians and therefore get some favor?
That's the reason.
Yeah. Let's think about what's more likely here. I'm not telling you that COVID is no big deal. I am not telling you it's not anything important. It absolutely is. The idea that 6 feet of social distance is going to have any significant impact on your likelihood of contracting COVID-19 is not based in science. Yeah. Neither is the idea of going to a football game outside. Like 6,000. All right, you couldn't have let 15,000 in. That would have been too, like,
whoa.
And God forbid, God forbid that you just let people make their own decisions. I know that's insane. I know that's crazy. I'm sorry to bring it up, but
how dare you?
I know.
You're so selfish.
Dangerous. That's what it is. It's just dangerous. So yeah, you know what? Forget him. I'm happy that some of the fans can go. I just like. Do
you think they'll be loud enough to impact the game?
No. It's 6,000 people. I've been in that stadium. It's huge.
I mean, I remember being in that stadium when there was 6,000 Steeler fans left after our game, and they were pretty loud. There was a pretty loud "Here we go Steelers" chant near the end of the game. They kind of drowned it out. It was interesting. So I don't know. I'm happy that they have fans. I'm hoping that it works out. I hope this lights a fire under Coach Boeheim and he says, let's do some indoor events next because we got a gigantic stadium that we can do this in. So
I'm happy people are going to get to watch.
Yeah.
And listen, I said this last week. if you have never lived in Buffalo, it's hard to explain what this team means to that city. It's really difficult how much of an impact it is on your day-to-day life of just the conversations center around that. And like, for a lot of people, I'm thrilled for them. I'm sorry that they can't get more people into the stadium. I wish they could. Obviously, maybe we don't need to go max capacity, but hey, when they switch it over and you're going to have to wear a different color mask based on if you've been vaccinated or not, and maybe you won't be able to attend concerts without it, is that exciting to you?
Yeah. I mean, we're going to sign up. Do they give out those masks?
I don't know.
Yeah. Are you going to I do feel a little bit, because you know that these all these folks have to go get a self-paid for COVID test.
Yeah.
To get in there, not on top of their playoff ticket, which I'm not even sure how much is, and their parking and all that other stuff, not counting concessions.
$11 for parking.
That seems fair.
Tickets are $60 to $350, I think, or $450, depending on where you're sitting.
And the testing company gave a discounted price
for $65.
63, but yeah,
$63 for a COVID test. And again, let's go back to the arbitrary nature of this. I don't know how many times we can beat this horse to death. The COVID test on a PCR is dumb. You need to have more than one to get an accurate idea of what you're looking at, and you need to know what your cycle threshold is in order to get it done. This is arbitrary.
I haven't seen yet if they're doing the antigen tests or the PCR tests. Yeah,
I'm just assuming they're going to do it the dumbest way possible.
Maybe because it's New York, but I think the NFL might be like, hey, listen, if we're going to do this, you can't have a bunch of crazy positive tests outside the stadium right before the game, right? So
sure,
my guess is they would rather have the antigen test where they're actually testing for a virus.
Fingers crossed.
So hopefully that happens out. Hopefully all of this works out, because it's needed more than the Bills need it. Like, the state needs it, the people need it. There's a bunch of people who need this thing to happen. So
I agree.
Hopefully it happens.
Fingers crossed, baby.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
And piggybacking that, kind of not, moving away from sports, but staying with New York and COVID, there has been kind of a slow initial rollout of the vaccine here in New York, which has kind of gotten people upset because they're complaining that they're allocating these shots to the wrong people or not to these people fast enough, and that they're worried that these chilled vaccines are going to sit and expire and not be used. Have you got your vaccine yet? I don't think there's a demand for it, I don't see anybody actually saying this, but I think the people just don't want the test or want the vaccine, and so there's no urgency to actually meet that lack of demand.
I think you're right. Listen, yes, some people want it, and this is just further evidence that social media is not real life. Like, everything on my Facebook and Twitter feed is people taking pictures with their sleeve rolled up and their little card and like, I did it for you.
We're all in it together, Ben.
Oh, thanks. You're so nice. But, it's really shocking news to find out that a government, particularly New York State, managed to do a simple rollout in the least efficient way possible.
Well, you see that they basically centralized it, right? So the counties have vaccine protocols in place always, every year. This is where we get our vaccines from, is through the county health officials. Not for COVID. New York State said, we know you guys do this every other time, but this time we think we got it. And they don't got it. Right.
High.
And so I do feel like there is some concession out of the state, and now they're kind of asking for the county's help, but they should have just been involved from the beginning. And obviously I feel like it just comes to the top, or the guy at the top wants to make all the decisions and look like the hero, and here we are. So
this is what happens when you let a narcissist run your state.
Yeah.
And you cede
Unchecked.
all authority over to him for a year, and then just nobody wants to take it back. Well, that's not true. At least half the people that could take it back don't want to, though. This is incredible to watch in real time and completely unsurprising. Like, look, we talked about this last week. The vaccine has not been established to prevent you from spreading this disease. All right. What it has been, at least preliminarily established, is that the vaccine will stop you from getting the disease. It'll stop you from developing symptoms and have a reduced rate. Now, listen, I say preliminarily because, let's be honest, if you want to break down the data of who they actually tested this vaccine on, I'm not going to say they went out of their way to avoid using old people, but there is a lower number of older people participants in the trials than you would like to know for a virus that specifically threatens older people at a far greater rate than everybody else.
And do you think that's a coincidence why we're still not vaccinating our old people today?
I can't explain this to you for the
Like,
life
I think I saw,
of me.
like, there was a couple days ago, was like 2% of the people over 65 have been vaccinated.
It's
And
just-
like, what are we doing?
This is amazing. So, like, listen, the stupidity of this is, all right, so I could take this vaccine, and it's going to probably stop me from dying. All right, cool. I wasn't going to die anyway from this, statistically speaking. Like, this is not a big thing to me. Well, you should take it so that you don't spread it to somebody else. But we haven't established that this vaccine can do that yet. That seems like kind of an important step that you're just skipping. And like, well, this is how vaccines work. Really? Is that how the flu vaccine works? I don't think it is. I think you could still get the flu and you could still transmit the flu, even if you have a flu vaccine. Weird, right? So same thing here of like the idea that you would go to frontline workers, frontline medical workers and all that first. Okay. But if somebody's 30, they're still 30 no matter what their profession is. And not for nothing, if you're a 30-year-old nurse or doctor, you probably have an immune system that far exceeds most people's because you've been exposed to more stuff. So the idea that you didn't just roll this out starting at nursing homes and nursing facilities, assisted living facilities, like, you know, where half of the deaths came from, despite only being 1% of the population.
It's mind-boggling.
You couldn't have done this dumber. Like, I'm not convinced Andrew Cuomo's not just a murderer. Like, I don't know what the old people did to him or why he hates them so much, but it's incredible to watch. Like, you're either incredibly incompetent to the point of being willfully ignorant, or you genuinely just don't like old people, and I don't know what the answer is. I do, but it's amazing. And the fact that people are still thinking this is the right idea. Like, listen, I get it. If you work in a hospital or whatever else, you want to stop the spread. We don't know that the vaccine does that. Nobody under the age of 40 should be getting this vaccine until every person over the age of 75 has gotten the vaccine. This is common sense. You want to lower the death rate? That's how you lower the death rate. Prioritize. I'm sorry, this is a triage situation. If you're 50 years old and older and you are a healthcare worker, by all means, go to the front of the line. But if you're under the age of 40, there's no reason for you to get this vaccine before every senior citizen has gotten it.
Yeah. No, like I said, I don't get it. So, and like I said, I don't think this state is alone in that. We're just obviously sitting in the middle of it, and we've been the epicenter for so long that we think we would have had such a attention to detail on this that it would have been handled much smoother, I guess. So hopefully this gets out better and smooths out. And
it won't. You know it won't. This
right.
is the worst part. This is what just came out, is Andrew Cuomo basically just said, if you go out of order as a distributor of this vaccine, if you don't follow my orders of this comes first, this comes first.
Dilly-dilly.
$1 million fine. Up to $1 million fine, and you can lose your license. So even if you wanted to just say, hey, look, I know that this 35-year-old nurse wants the vaccine, but I'm going to give it to this 75-year-old that also happens to be my friend, you will get fined, and you could lose your license. Like, this is how government comes in and makes everything worse. You're seeing the same thing in California, too, of this is the dumbest way to do this. Of, look, I don't want anybody to get sick. I don't want anybody to die. Then let's be smart about what we're doing. Let's actually have a half a brain and say, wait, well, you know, the vaccine seems to really help prevent death. So do we give it to the people that are at no risk of dying, or to the people that have like a very high chance of dying?
Yeah, like I said.
Equitable distribution. Like, what are we doing? This is nuts. Now, not only that, you take away the discretion of the doctors to say you better do it this way or else we're going to take away your license and fine you $1 million. Great idea. I don't see any problems with this. At least the virus has to stay at like negative 25 degrees Kelvin in order to stay healthy, and that'll expire on the shelves. So wasteful on top of it. Like, we hit the trifecta here.
Yeah. Well, welcome to New York. I love it. So, so moving away from New York.
Are
Cuomo,
you sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
How's your Ethereum doing?
Awesome. Still don't know why, but it's awesome.
I see that hit like 1,100 a couple of days ago, maybe yesterday. 1,100. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's it's gone up quite a bit. I don't know why, but I'm not complaining.
Demand is the reason why.
Demand. There you go.
So
Let's
and
keep
Bitcoin,
the demand going, folks.
That Ethereum, Litecoin, some of these other alternative coins basically rode the back of Bitcoin to a record surge, blasting past 30,000 and all the way up to 34,000, a couple hundred, maybe something around there. So there was a massive pullback. Massive, maybe not be the right word in Bitcoin terms, because I think it was only about 8%, but 8% in about, 5 minutes, and corrected down to like 27.6. And as you can see over the top of my head here, we are right back at about 31. So if you bought back in at under 30,000 like I did, congratulations. And yeah, so onward and upward with Bitcoin. Everybody is, it hasn't reached the hype as it did in 2017, 2018, and I'm not sure exactly why, considering the price is significantly higher. But I still think it's going to go up. Like, we're in uncharted price territory here, and there's, the only time it drops is when somebody's looking to cash out some. And there's so much more institutional money in than there was back in the day that I don't think these pump and dumps are going to be as frequent and as deep. So I don't know. It's crazy to keep just watching the chart go up and up and up every single day, but here we are, and it just keeps going up and up and up every day.
It's fun to watch.
Yeah. Like I said, my kid's addicted. I got him a little bit on over the holidays, and now he can't stop watching his little chart too. So it does that when it just goes straight up, right?
It's way more fun to invest in something when it just goes straight up.
Yeah.
It's less fun when it goes down by like 35% in a day.
Yeah. So
or so I've heard.
Yeah. No, you definitely want to be on the upside there. So what do you think about – wait, do we want to talk about your boy Lynn Wood?
My boy Lynn Wood. my boy Lynn Wood.
Claiming that Jeffrey Epstein's alive? Trying to piggyback on my shtick?
So yeah, I was gonna say my boy Lynn Wood, even though he's now he's on to your conspiracy theory.
Yeah,
I still think,
and I'm coming down off of that. Like I'm like, I don't think Epstein was as important. He probably is dead. I'm like down to like 30-70 that he's alive, and this guy's like he's alive, and I'm like, oh, I have to reassess. Do I have to reevaluate my position? I'm still at 30-70. He's alive, so most likely he's dead.
He's dead.
Yeah, I do too.
I'll go. I'm not like certain of it. Maybe 51-49, maybe 70-30. I have no idea. I assume he's dead, mostly because it doesn't make sense to me to keep him alive. Like there's too much liability, there's too much risk, there's too much
and so
that could go wrong.
And I agree 100% with that. So my assertion is not that the Mossad or whoever would have taken him out, that like he just figured it out himself, right? So he had enough money. He knew if he was caught, he was getting done. And I'm going to sneak myself the hell out of here as quickly as I possibly can.
Also could be entirely plausible.
If he is alive, I don't think it was the help of anybody other than his group, like his group of people. So, but I found that interesting. Obviously, the Trump's lawyer throwing out there on Twitter that Epstein was alive. He's been trying to throw a bunch of shade at a bunch of different people. So,
I feel like I'm watching a mental breakdown.
It looks like it. It does look like that. You can find that on Twitter pretty much every single day if you look hard enough.
That's actually a good point. That's a very good point. Now, listen, I feel like the election fraud stuff has just brought up the worst in everybody, which is really sad. It is.
I mean, this is a 5-year thing in a row, right? So this is just the latest version of the election fraud thing. It's just the capitulation from 5 years ago.
I think. What do I think? I think whatever side you are on, you tend to believe anything that comes out about it. I think there's the left side, the right side, and then generally speaking, the truth is somewhere in the middle. I think every time that Donald Trump goes out and tweets in all caps about this is the greatest fraud in the history of the republic,
we won big.
You're doing more harm than good. I also think at the same time, every time any of the mainstream legacy media outlets come out and say Trump claims with no evidence that there was voter fraud, like, look, you're the exact opposite side of the same coin. There are some irregularities. There are things that don't make sense. There are things that are indicative of fraud. I'm not telling you that it was any more or less than what normally happens, but the idea that there was none, I don't think is supported by the facts. I think that there's people way smarter than me who know way more about this, who hate Donald Trump far more than I do, that are coming out and saying like, yeah, no, it's pretty obvious. There's a lot of fraud going on here. This is ugly. I don't know what to do with that. So I think the problem is everybody is so certain and nobody has any room for doubt. Nobody wants to hear like, hey, maybe there was some fraud, but it wasn't as substantial as you think and it wouldn't have made a difference. Or, hey, maybe there really was. Like maybe there is not a legitimate reason why the voting machines were connected to the Wi-Fi and had a secret algorithm that was counting votes. Like that should be a little off-putting to you. That should be concerning. And so, again, the truth is likely somewhere in the middle, but nobody wants to hear that. And then Lynn Wood is the same thing. Look, this guy, his track record better than I do of the things he's done. If anybody, assuming our government is like full of these monstrosities of conspiracies that seem to be, he's the one who would know.
Yeah.
So
this is not his first rodeo. He's been in some other high-profile cases. This is just his definitely most high-profile case, I think. So
I agree.
I
don't know what to do with it.
Do you think the Trump's rally on the 6th is going to, enlighten us with any new information?
No.
Nothing new at all?
Listen, I don't know at this point. I really don't
Nor do
know.
I.
Maybe. I do think that you're seeing, I don't even know the right way to say this, it's hard for me to get excited in one direction or another. It's hard for me to come out and be like, oh, my God, just shut up and move on. And it's hard for me to come out and be like, this was a travesty and it's an injustice to us all. I'm kind of sitting back and going, what is happening?
Yeah.
What have we
It's a
got
breakdown.
going on? Now, what do you expect from this rally?
Nothing, Burger. I don't expect. Listen, I guess I'm of the opinion if there was something that was going to decide that there was definitive fraud, it would be out already. There's no reason to hold it till the 6th. I mean, you would have put that, like, as soon as you had it, you'd have been like, here it is.
I would think so. I mean,
there's no reason to hold it. There's no reason to hold on to a piece of information that would actually prove your point. So if you have it, just put it out there and get your point and let that discussion happen. Waiting till January 6th to give out the information seems as more like just a propaganda or a tease more than anything else.
Yeah, it seems like not even saying that it's necessarily wrong, but it feels like more of an assertion than a proven fact. Like if you had all the, and even, listen, just because you can't prove something doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Sure.
All right. So even if maybe you don't have the evidence, and I had a friend of mine asking me earlier about this of like, why is nobody talking about it? Why are we not doing audits? And he's of the anti-Trump persuasion. And I said, look, I really don't know. There might be nothing to it. My hiccup is I've talked to some people who know a lot more about this than I do. I have listened to people who know a lot more about these things than I do, that some are pro-Trump, some are not. But the consensus has been, yeah, no, there's definitely been fraud, and it's been obvious, and people are just turning a blind eye because this is who they want or don't want to be in office. I don't know what to do. I also have heard from people that know more about this that there is no fraud and this is all nothing. So I don't know what I'm supposed to do with all this information.
Yeah, I don't know that we can do anything with it. I mean, I assume that Biden takes office sometime in the next few days, and we have 4 years of Joe Biden presidency. Well, 3.5 maybe at the max. Two probably. Also news, Trump related kind of.
Yay.
The United Kingdom decided overnight, I guess this morning, our time, I don't know what time it was, 6 o'clock in the morning or whatever, I was paying attention to it. Julian Assange will not be extradited to the United States. The judge said the U.S. prison system was basically too inhumane to put Julian Assange into, and therefore ordered his release. The U.S. will appeal and said they were going to appeal, but it's a chance that Julian Assange could be walking out with bail here in the next few days, which would be a major win for press freedoms, I think, around the world. Even though the ruling was not pro-press freedom per se, because, again, they really just kind of released Assange on the idea that they couldn't send him to the U.S. prisons because they were so bad, not that because what he was being accused of was not a crime. So there's still more work to be done in actually freeing Assange and making sure that this doesn't happen to somebody else in the future. But having him walk out of that building as a free man is something that I don't know that anybody ever thought was ever going to happen.
And it still might not. We'll see. So let's go through this a little bit. I think that when most people hear about Julian Assange, most people don't really understand what happened or why he was under it. Now, the official story is he released confidential and top secret information about the U.S. government in an effort to increase transparency and almost force transparency by the government because the government was doing some shady stuff and he wanted to expose it. Now,
real quick, I'll stop you there.
Hit me.
He may have wanted to expose it personally, but he was not actually doing that. So people were actually getting him information, and he was just the publisher, right? So he wasn't the one taking information from any government source, any classified material. He was given the information through WikiLeaks, which is the website that he ran, vetted that information, went through it. There has still not been any known casualty harm done to any person from any information that's ever been released from Julian Assange.
I think that point needs to be stressed because
Right.
I think a lot of people immediately get turned off of like, well, he put soldiers' lives at risk and he endangered our intelligence agents.
And Assange made his first wake that he made in the news had nothing to do with the Clinton emails. Like this was like 10 years after. So I feel like it was Iraq. It might have been Afghanistan. No, it was Iran or Iraq. So there was a Reuters news team, like a handful of reporting on the war. There was a video of U.S. military gunning them down. They just from the air. So they killed this group of media personnel and then covered it up. So this was the first thing that Julian Assange kind of, shed light on. He put it out there. The video that you can see them just shooting up these people, and then they cover it up and don't talk anything. So this was the first thing that he brought out. This was back in the Bush years, and
Simpler
he
times.
has done more and more and more. But again, it's not him looking out for the information. He is publishing information that is being given to him through whistleblowers. Chelsea Manning was another one of these whistleblowers. She gave massive amounts of information. WikiLeaks and Julian Assange would go through that information, pull out any information that would be, potentially harmful to any plans or personnel in the area, but did point out where the government had done wrong, and the government didn't like it, and that's how this whole thing started. They basically strapped him with a false rape claim, and he has been basically in embassies in isolation ever since. And the hope that
and again, we still might not. Like, this isn't a given. And you're right. What the judge basically did was avoided the actual issue and got out of it. Was a workaround of like, look, I don't want to get into whether or not any of this is illegal, legal, or whatever else. So here's my escape hatch. Here's my parachute. I'm yanking it. I'm out. And this is going to be left up to somebody else. Now, I don't disagree with the ruling. I don't. I think that we all like to think that our prison systems are humane, fair, ethical, and compared to some other countries, they certainly are. I do think we can all acknowledge a certain level of his situation would be treated differently, and you'd absolutely get forced isolation on him and some other measures, to say the least, because once you get into counterintelligence rules and laws under the Bush/Rumsfeld doctrine, you're allowed to do some stuff that is
not good,
ethically questionable, but apparently legal. How's that? Yeah. And I don't know. Like I guess I kind of want to laugh off the idea of like, oh yeah, our prison system is torturing or whatever else. At the same time, like if you're going to consider this guy a high value target with propensity to leak confidential information, I'm well aware of what our government has authorized its agents to do in that situation. I shouldn't say I'm well aware. I have some understanding, and it's hard for me to argue that any of that could be seen as humane or just.
Yeah, like I said, a whole separate conversation, indictment on the federal prison system, that we can't actually take a prisoner, which is a whole other conversation. But hopefully the appeal goes nowhere. Hopefully Julian Assange walks out of the whatever he is, the embassy there in the UK, a free man, or at least temporarily a free man on bail. And hopefully this goes away. Hopefully it's over. Hopefully Trump can still,
bring that pardon power.
Yeah, bring that pardon power down and pardon Assange. He can still, we're still waiting on a pardon for Edward Snowden. Ross Albright, same thing. Like there's things that are still there for Trump to execute and still kind of secure some of his legacy, and I hope he kind of follows through on that. But like I said, I of all the ones, I didn't think Assange would ever walk free again, and I'm hopeful that turns out to be the case. So this just happened over the weekend, or just over this morning, actually.
This morning,
so,
yeah. It's brand new information. And
yeah.
Listen, I hope you're right, because I'm in a very different position now than I was 10 years ago or 20 years ago. I enlisted in the military right out of high school. I joined the Army Reserve. I was in Iraq. I was a believer in everything. And what I've learned over the last 20 years or so, God, I feel old. Our government does some awful stuff. Stuff that it gets covered up, and it's not. And I'm not talking about just waterboarding or anything, enhanced interrogation techniques. I'm talking about stuff way worse than that. I think waterboarding is awful, but you could at least argue it's a gray area in the notion of information collection and torture. There's way worse stuff, and how much the spying on U.S. citizens without their consent, the absolute police state that we live in, that is, you can be buried. Like Ross Albright serving consecutive life sentences is nuts. And I never even heard the guy's name. I'm a reasonably well-informed human being and have been my entire adult life. I've never heard of the guy until we started talking about it on the show. We don't have a free and fair press any longer. We have mouthpieces for the different parties, and when those parties agree, which just so happens to be on give us more power and trust us, the media will absolutely run cover for them. I mean, look, Ben Rhodes was I don't remember what his title was. He was like a defense advisor to Barack Obama, whose brother just happened to run CBS, so nothing untold there. But he admitted it news agencies no longer have foreign correspondents. So basically, we go in and tell them what the story is, and then they turn around and run it because we're their only source. So we're feeding them the information that we want put out there. They go and put it out there, and then we come in and announce that this is what's happening. The media is supposed to be a check on the government, not the amplification of the government policies. You do need to have a check on if we have people going to prison for life sentences for, I'm going to argue, not anything worthy of a life sentence. We shouldn't have a media willingly run with an unverified, unsubstantiated claim of sexual assault against the guy because he exposed the government's dirty laundry. He's the one who came out and said, look, I will be the first one to tell you, war's awful. Shit happens. It's nobody wants this. It's bad. We're in one. We're in two. Things go wrong a lot. And the problem is there's supposed to be consequences. You're not allowed to just go mow down civilians. That's not okay. And I get there's a brotherhood and all that. At some point, there's still right and wrong. And you need to have these balance of forces out there of hey, look, the government, it's in its best interest if that gets swept under the rug, for sure. But you still need somebody on the other side to say, wait, there's still something wrong with this. And there needs to be accountability. There needs to be somebody to be held responsible or somehow that this gets brought out so it never happens again.
Yeah, there's too much of an overlap now.
Right.
All those former officials who worked on all these intelligence agencies end up as guest expert, commentators on all these news channels. So they've crafted and they just bring it right to the press. That's crafted right there for them. There's not even there's no overlooking of the military anymore. They are the mainstream press is just part of it. So there is nobody looking out and making sure that our government is doing the right thing. So I wish there was more of that.
It's crazy. And that's where I'm still sort of evolving on my feelings on all of this because this is grow up a libertarian. I didn't grow up I grew up paying attention and being informed, but it was much more of the U.S. is the good guys in the world. We're the heroes. We're the saviors. We're the beacon of freedom, democracy, and all that. And I grew up as a true believer. And then it was, as I started to get older, some of this stuff just became undeniable of oh my God, what are we doing? Yeah. Why are we doing this? Is nuts how badly we managed to screw everything up. And then you read more history and you realize, oh man, we're pro at this stuff. We've been doing this decades. All right, let's go decades.
Yeah.
And we find this way to do it. And it's so much worse now. It's so much worse with what we do around the world. And I'm not sure there is an altruistic purpose behind it. I'm no longer certain that it is anything other than self-interest at the highest level that then people turn it well, if you're against the military, then you're not a patriot of no, look, I can be pro-military and not want you to send them to every godforsaken country on earth over every pissing match that you want to get into because they don't want to sell you oil. That's an okay position for me to have.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's wrong that these people are exposing the secrets of our government, especially when the government is the one engaging in such bad actions. Yeah. It is wrong that the NSA is spying on American citizens. It's wrong. They shouldn't be allowed to do that. Like, oh, well, grow up. This is the real world. Like, right, it's the world that we accept. And we're just accepting that these people are allowed to do this with no justification, no warrant, no nothing. And then they'll send you to prison for 2 consecutive life sentences, and nobody feels the need to even cover that in the media? Like, what happened?
Yeah. Nope.
What happened?
Yeah,
when did this change?
Yeah, there was a collapse at some point, and I don't know. I probably witnessed it, but didn't realize it was happening at the time.
It's just one thing. The changes are never wholesale. Everybody always overestimates how much change there will be in 1 year and underestimates how much change there will be in 10 years. And that's been true for most of human history. But it's the same thing of, like, you would never accept what's going on where we are right now with COVID responses if it was all dropped to you on once. There's no way if day one they said, we're going to lock down for the next 9 months. We're going to keep businesses at least under restrictions. You're going to wear a mask. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. We're going to keep churches reduced. We're going to keep all this for at least 9 months. Everybody would have been like, whoa, 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 whoa. No, that's nuts. You can't do that. That's insane. But instead, it's one little thing at a time. It's little bites of the apple, one after another.
Yeah, we were the proverbial boiled frog in the pot.
There you go. Which I don't know if that's really how you boil a frog or why you're boiling a live frog. That seems weird.
That's an analogy, Ben.
I get it, but like beat a dead horse, I at least understand. Seriously, is that how you make, do they not kill the frog first before boiling it? Because that seems mean.
Do you ever make lobster?
What?
Do you ever make lobster?
Yeah, I know that's how you do lobster.
Just throwing it out there.
But at least the water's already boiling in that case, and you drop them in and they die. It's somewhat humane. If I had to choose a way to die, I want that way.
Well, that's the whole point, is this is not humane, right? So, that's true. We are slowly being boiled to our death without basically not knowing it. So,
yeah, and not for nothing, if we had any type of a independent and fair and aggressive media, we'd all know about Mitch McConnell's shady business dealings with China and other offshore countries, and Nancy Pelosi's, and Chuck Schumer's, and a lot of other people, and Joe Biden's. Like, we would know about these things, and they'd be common knowledge that we could discuss freely and openly, and then make a decision on, hey, is this a big deal or not? But instead, everybody, like half of you, when I said that thing about Mitch McConnell, were like, yeah. And then I said it about Nancy Pelosi, and you were like, And the other half did the opposite. Like, they're all dirty.
Yeah.
And they've turned us against each other to do their bidding. We didn't talk about this yet. Who was the congressman or woman who voted for Nancy Pelosi to be the Speaker of the House again in person, even though she had a positive COVID test 4 days ago?
Oh, yeah. I can't remember her name now either, but yeah.
I'll look it up.
She tested on the 28th and then had the vote.
Yes, tested positive on the 28th. Here it is. Gwen Moore, Democrat from Wisconsin, tested positive for the coronavirus on December 28th, does not have a negative COVID test, showed up on the House floor. So apparently these restrictions are super important, and you better isolate unless you need Nancy Pelosi and she needs your vote to become the Speaker of the House. Then it's okay for you to break quarantine and go be around inside 400 other people. Then it's okay. This is what I'm talking about. Do you really think that this person thought they were at any risk, or all these other elected officials would have let that person in if they thought there was any risk to them whatsoever?
No.
No shot. Sorry. Like, they know it's arbitrary. They know that this is just an over-the-top insanity, what they're doing. And yet we all go along and you want to yell at people and guilt people into agreeing with you as if it somehow makes you heartless to go, wait, 6 feet is an arbitrary number. That doesn't make any sense. Same with this. Look, that person shouldn't have been around somebody else with a positive COVID test under all of our restrictions and rules and guidelines. If you've been listening to us for any amount of time, you know that the COVID tests are significantly flawed. And I think it's probably perfectly fine that this congresswoman went there. I'm assuming Gwen is a woman. I don't actually know. It's probably okay. The difference is, why don't you know that? Why are they okay shuttering everything and restricting everything beyond belief? And then when they need one of their own, they're like, well, this is just too important.
Yeah.
Right. Makes total sense now.
They couldn't even come back and vote for the whatever $1 trillion package they had back in April, whatever it was, either. So
I can't express to you how much I dislike all of these people.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's legitimately
all
a
of
sewer.
them.
I've been calling it a sewer for a decade, and that's probably being nice. I've run out of topics here, Mr. Hussong. I did want to. I should have used this as a transition, but I was just thinking about Bitcoin and the NFL again. And I don't know if you saw Russell Okung. Yeah. Took the first player, I think maybe the first NFL player. I don't know if there's other players in other sports that have done this, but he kind of made a big deal about it because he took half of his pay in Bitcoin. So there is a third-party service, and I'm drawing a blank on the name right now, Zap, I think, who facilitated the payment through the NFL for the players because the NFL didn't know how to do it. So, and nor should they. Like, I mean, I don't know Bitcoin, and you're like, okay, well, what's that? You know, kind of thing, right? So the NFL, but they figured it out, and
good for them.
Yeah, interesting that we now, and Okung has been very pro Bitcoin for a while, and basically has been trying to get other NFL players and other friends within the league to kind of adopt his position. So more good news for Bitcoin, I guess. Maybe we can get Mr. Okung to run for president in 2024. It feels like that should be.
I feel like he's going to be busy.
I mean, 4 years from now.
Yeah, he's not that old.
I know. He's got to be close to 35. I'm going to check that.
I meant he's probably still going to be in the NFL in 4 years.
Yeah, but why not? Why not? Why? He's got Bitcoin. He doesn't need to be in the NFL anymore.
What would you rather be, an NFL player or the president of the United States?
Well, yeah, but he's already done that. He can check that list, right? So, like, now he can just go do something else.
All right, you got your dream job. You're going to give it up for that?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, listen, I'm good.
He's an offensive lineman, I think, so, like, can't be playing forever.
They play for a long time, though.
Sure, I guess, yeah.
Especially
but if you're smart, you don't. What else? Did we touch on everything we need to touch on here? Did we leave the folks without any information that we should be enlightening them with?
So, yeah, let's enlighten a little bit more because it's everybody's favorite subject. Oh, yeah, we're okay on time. Masks. So we found an old article from 2003 during the original SARS-CoV virus where Australia was threatening to sue and fine stores and businesses for claiming masks work to stop the virus.
What?
It's amazing.
What?
Yeah, it's amazing. They were going to fine people for saying that a paper or a cloth mask could prevent the spread of SARS.
And if you read through that article, they basically talk about exactly what we've been talking about here for the last few weeks is the masks they don't work if they get wet. So as you breathe on them, you're not just breathing air. There is moisture coming out of your mouth. And after 15 to 20 minutes, guess what? They're useless. So this whole idea that you can wear a mask all day and protect people is nonsense. It's nonsense.
It's simply not supported by the science.
It's so backwards that...
And if you could recreate optimal conditions for the mask wearer and mask wearing and the mask itself throughout an entire day of going out in public, it would have a minor positive effect. Please let me stress that again. Minor positive effect. It's not going to block all. At best, it's going to block a few. Some are still going to get through, especially because the virus is spread through aerosols. I think we can comfortably say that with almost zero doubt at this point, or such small droplets that a mask wouldn't stop them anyway, but it'll stop the larger ones. It could reduce viral load, which may have an impact on transferability. Great. So at best, under optimal conditions, it may temporarily help a little.
For 20 minutes.
Welcome to the real world of, be honest with yourself. How often do you change your mask? How often have you washed your mask? How often do you think the person across from you in Wegmans has washed their mask? How many times does it hit the passenger seat of your car, the inside of your pocket, your hand covered in germs, hanging on your rear view mirror? How often does all of this stuff happen and then you put it back on your face over and over again? Have you ever worn a mask for longer than 20 minutes and talked while you did it? I guarantee you your mask is wet. Guaranteed. It happens because we all, those droplets, they do come out. And as soon as the mask gets wet, it stops blocking. It's the damnedest thing.
Shocking.
And so this is why in 2003 they did this and said, hey, you're trying to scare people into buying masks, and we will not allow you to take advantage of frightened consumers like that, so we will fine you if you try to convince people that without any scientific basis wearing a mask will stop them from getting SARS, because it's not true.
Yeah, we're going to save that nugget for 17 years from now.
That's amazing. That how it's and again, imagine if we had a real media that they could go back and say, wait. 17 years ago, you said this. What changed? It's not the science. Sorry, guys.
And it
it's
all
not.
changed this year, too. It's not like it was a gradual, like, oh, we found this, and now this, and whatever. No, all this happened in an instant in about 30 days in April.
I haven't been able to find a single study saying that masks effectively block any respiratory virus prior to 2020. I can't find one. That should be concerning for all of us. And you're like, oh, well, we didn't know about SARS-CoV-2. Like, again, we knew about SARS. We know about coronaviruses. We know about all of these things. It's not like these are all brand new things. They've existed. We've been testing
But
them.
we're going to treat them all like brand new things.
Right.
Even though we have a bunch of information that we could study and use and reference in the past, we're just going to make it work.
Oh, my God, did it ever. Not only that, remember a few months ago when they said the IHME out of England, which is somehow still considered a legitimate source of information.
Your other boy, Neil Ferguson?
My boy, Neil Ferguson. Man, if I could meet that gentleman, we'd exchange some words. They would not be pleasant. He's a laughing stock. The fact that anybody still listens to this guy, that's on you. Stop. So anyways, they came out and said, if only we could get the Americans to get to 80% mask wearing, we would save millions of lives. We could stop people from dying. We got our mask wearing to about 90%. What happened? And then we saw a spike afterwards. Like, we got to the 90%, and then we saw coronavirus spread go out of control.
I wonder if it has anything to do with everybody strapping that germ sprayer to their face.
Or the testing. Again, we've never tested asymptomatic people like this before. There is a reason we have never done this before. It's not because they didn't think about it. It's not because they lacked the ability. It's because they knew public policy-wise it was a terrible idea. Yeah. But like for some reason, we forgot all of it.
Yeah, we've done this in other forms in the past. Like I said, 2009, H1N1. They stopped testing because they realized they were going into a case-demic, right? They're like, hey, we just keep doing this. We're going to have too many cases to handle, and we don't really have that many cases. So they just cold turkey stopped.
Right.
This is what we should be doing in 2020.
Right, and now it's
dangerous and
it's
a conspiracy theory.
Insanity of the idea that you can do all these things exactly the opposite of all of the available evidence, and then everybody just comes in line and supports you for it of like, yeah. Like, look, guys, 90% of us in New York are wearing masks everywhere we freaking go. And the virus is still spreading. At some point, I'm not telling you that if you don't wear a mask, you won't get COVID. But you're going to get it if you wear a mask, too. It's not having an impact. I don't know how much more clear this could be at this point. Then it's not the difference maker. It is, at best case scenario, kind of beneficial, maybe a little.
I don't even think so.
And this is what Fauci said when they instituted the mask. He said, look, there's not a lot of cost to it. It might help a little, so let's all wear masks. And somehow we transition from that into, if you don't wear a mask, you're the reason that we need more lockdowns. Okay, so if I use one thing that doesn't work to stop the spread of a virus, you're going to threaten me with more significant restrictive measures that also don't affect the spread of a virus?
Double down.
And everybody's on board with this. Everybody's like, yeah, that's the problem.
I've said this before. The government cannot not do something. They have to do. They feel like they are on the clock doing something all the time, and they shouldn't be. They should realize that doing nothing sometimes is the right plan, and we should have been doing far closer to nothing than something here. And we're just over the cliff is probably nice. Like I don't know how we unwind all the damage we've done. Even going cold turkey, stopping all this stuff today, the damage is going to go on for decades.
For sure. Listen, this is an inevitability now of the government does not ever give back authority or power. Once it knows it can do something, they don't ever take it back. And it's not because there's like a secret hand that's pushing all of this along. It's not the Illuminati. Well,
George Soros and
maybe it is.
Henry
I don't
Kissinger
know,
in the back room.
Let's assume for a minute that George Soros and Henry Kissinger are not somewhere directing policy. It's just human nature of the people that tend to get into politics tend to be a little bit narcissistic. They tend, even if they have well intentions, which let's be honest and say not all of them do, they want credit and they think that they are the best thing to help. So you just get all of this continuing down this path, and there's no acknowledgement they got it wrong. I think that's the most frustrating part of,
sure.
Look, we did a lot wrong early on, especially in New York City. We got a lot wrong. And there's never been this acknowledgement of like, hey, here's exactly what we did wrong, and this is the cause, and this is what we know happened now. We can't do it. Like, we're not capable. And instead, we just keep doubling down on the stupidity of all of this. And consequences be damned, we're going to get it. It's if I wasn't living through it, I wouldn't have understood how it could be possible.
Yeah.
But it is, and it's because people have so much certainty that whatever they're doing is the right thing, and we have to just do something. And it's, look, I probably used to think that way at one point when I was 18 and 16 and younger. But now, you know, I'm in my 30s. It's gotten a little more clear to me of, wait, just pause and take a step back and first make sure that what you're doing isn't harming anybody. And what we are doing is unquestionably harming people. It's not even a debatable point. The problem is we're not doing any measurable good. If we were doing measurable good, we could have a cost-benefit analysis. But we're not. Like, the virus is spreading. No arguments. Your mask is not helping.
Other than Wuhan, did you see their New Year celebration?
No.
It's like Times Square.
Good for them. Apparently they beat COVID. Congratulations.
The only person in Times Square this year was Mayor de Blasio, dancing with his wife.
Cyndi Lauper was down there too, I think.
Oh, well, must have had a serenade.
Yeah, I don't know.
Time
I
after
didn't watch any of it.
Time after time, little serenation.
True colors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
It's quite a day.
I don't have anything else. Let's leave the folks with that. And
one piece of advice to leave the folks with at
Yeah.
home. Act as if your mask doesn't work. Just act as if it has no impact on COVID. If something would be too risky for you to try without a mask on, don't do it just because you have a mask on. And if you are sick, put the mask on anyway. And same thing. Just act as if it doesn't work. So don't think it's a free license to go do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Pretend it doesn't work. That will have a bigger impact on containing the spread and stopping people from getting sick than wearing 4 masks will. Pretend it doesn't work.
Best mask advice I've heard all year. Thanks, Mr. Hughes.
That's what I'm here for, buddy.
All right. On that note, we will see everybody next Monday for the